I don't know if I'm live yet. The thing's still spinning. Can you guys see me? 1 second here. Awkward way to start a show. Here it is. All right, now it turned red. Now it's saying I'm live. I've been live for 35 seconds, so you guys have probably been sitting here watching me in silence, clicking around my screen. There's like a little go live button, and then it spins. It says like, "Are you sure?" And then it spins a little bit, and it just didn't stop spinning. It just kind of sat there and froze on me, so I don't know if we had actually started. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the MLB DFS Lineup Card show. Welcome, fellow outcasts and weirdos and baseball lovers. We welcome all types here. Everybody's welcome in our Discord, and we won't kick anybody out. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Some of you don't. There's apparently a lot of drama going on around the old DFS industry, I hear, these days. I got to catch up on some of the things that have been going on Twitter, from what I hear. But I was unexpectedly woke up to a bit of a surprise. Unexpectedly booted from the club over at our former pals over at Stochastic. So we're out here. We're on our own. We're doing our thing, and we were trying to be inoffensive about it. I didn't want to pick any fights with anybody. Thought we were doing the right thing. It's probably because of unrelated things. Who knows? Who knows? But hey, our Discord's open. Looked like we got a bunch of people jumped in there to hang out and say hi this afternoon, which took me a little bit outside of the ability to get the article done at a good pace today. I was jumping back and forth between that and chat, but it's fun stuff. Always interesting. Always a little bit of drama to go with the DFS action and all. So we welcome it. Whatever. It makes it fun. Makes it interesting. But yeah, no hard feelings on my side. I'm sure it was just a bunch of stuff in the that got lost in the background there about who's who and whatever it is. No hard feelings here. I'm going to continue doing everything exactly the same way I always have. And like I said, we welcome everybody. Anyway, let's talk baseball. Let's talk slate. We got 7 games lined up. Should be a fun little slate here. I think there's a wealth of pitching on board today, which is kind of interesting for a small slate. There's a lot of good pitching options. It's kind of a broad day for pitching. There's a lot of guys at high prices. We've got a handful of true aces. There's 5 guys on FanDuel priced over 10,000. They get Logan Allen at 91, who's an interesting, that qualifies as a high price but a good value on that slate. It's a little bit less stark on DK. There's a lot of good value options on the DK slate. A couple of those guys, 4 high price guys, and then just all value pricing. So it's an interesting breakdown for the pitching slate today. I think there's a couple good opportunities for hitting. We're going to go through it all. Let's dive into it game by game. And yeah, let me say hi to everybody. Everybody's been in there and listening to me rant and talk about things with behind the scenes inside baseball stuff. We've got Po DJ and Stoner in the chat saying wake and bake. Everybody, as always, traditional greeting. Let's see what else we got here. Squatch happens, one of the best. Found out about you this morning. Welcome, buddy. Appreciate you jumping in. Stephen B, Fanatic, everybody in here. Trey sent a little screenshot. Booked a $150 win on. I'm not sure what the entry was, but presumably less than $150, and had the rotoscouts logo up there. So that was nice to see. Love seeing that. Larry's in the chat here. Larry says, hey, everyone, things are so much easier when you're working from home. Past 2 days did lineups on NJ Transit coming home. Not ideal. Oof, I know that feeling, Larry, from back in the day. I've told this story before, and we don't need to spend too much time, but for a while there when I was working in the city, before the DFS career really got started, I was just playing, handful of hand-built lineups, doing my thing, and that's where a couple of my first early wins came from. But at that time, it was banned in New York, legal in Jersey. So I had to do the thing where I'm setting my entries in the morning in Jersey, putting in the placeholders, then I can edit them from work in New York. If I forgot to do that, I'd be on the bus coming back through the Lincoln Tunnel waiting for the midpoint in the tunnel to be able to hope that there's still entries available for me. But it was always a scramble of editing those placeholder entries on Jersey Transit coming home. So I feel you, buddy. Let's see what else is going on in there. Terry's been always straight up. We don't need to go need to go to that level, but yeah, I always try and be straight up. Joker's over here. He's saying hi. Let's dive into this slate. Let's talk baseball. All right. We're up on the screen. We got all our dots in place. Let me make sure that's translating through for you guys. Yeah, we look pretty good here. Mighty Saint says, do what you do. You're an extremely... Well, I don't know about the extremely smart part, but I'm certainly a DFS player, and I always do what I do and just try and live my life my way and do my thing, so whatever. Let's get into this thing. First game on deck. The weak-ass Tigers going up against Sonny Gray. I think this is a good spot for a pitcher. 9,300 is a fair price on DK. 10-1 is a good price for Sonny on FanDuel. You can see he's projected as one of my top overall pitchers on the slate. Having a good season. He's a frustrating guy, a lot of bad memories from when he was on the Yankees for me, but overall, through his career, has been a high-end pitcher. Had some of his best years when he was pitching in the bandbox in Cincinnati, has been fairly effective for the Twins, and having a good year so far this year, 25.2% strikeouts, 72 innings in 13 starts, is giving you fairly reliable depth of start as long as he doesn't get in trouble. He's probably going to chase a win, chase a quality start in this game. With his team facing the Tigers and Matthew Boyd, there should be plenty of opportunity for him to get a win. He's allowed 1 home run in 13 starts this year, which is weird. There's a little bit of premium contact there. 7.5% barrels, a 40.7% hard hit rate, 89.2 miles an hour average exit velo. There's a little bit of premium contact, but he's been excellent at limiting home runs. It's not like he's going to give up, 3 for the entire year after giving up 1 in the first third of the season. That'll normalize somewhat, but he's off to an outstanding start at limiting power, and he's facing a team that is just basically inept at the plate. The leader in their current lineup here has 6 home runs? No, 9. I'm sorry. Jake Rogers at the bottom of the lineup there has 9 cheapo catcher home runs that are totally unowned for DFS purposes. So that leads the team. He's also got a 174, 273, 443 triple slash and a 96 WRC plus and 133 plate appearances. One of their better players. McKinstry, Torkelson. I wrote a little bit about Torkelson today. I've talked about it a couple times on shows. I feel like he's showing a little bit of signs of life at the plate. He shaved a little bit off the strikeout rate year over year, improved the walk rate a little bit year over year. The hard hits are up nicely from 41.4% to 49.7%. The barrels are up from 8.4 to 11.5. It hasn't really translated. 7 home runs in 279 plate appearances, a 148 ISO. Approaching the surface with a 98 WRC plus. I think there's at least life there for Spencer Torkelson, and he only costs 2,800, 2,700. So if you choose to attack Sonny Gray, which with some Tigers value bats at their prices on a short slate with a lot of good pitching and a lot of expensive spots, it's not the craziest idea in the world. I like it a little bit better than attacking like a Shohei Ohtani or somebody like that. I think Gray's a little bit more gettable, but it's not a good spot. It's not one I'm pushing. It's not one I would have much of. But if I'm doing it, I think I do include Spencer Torkelson there. It's an interesting enough option for me at this point with how hard he's hitting the ball and the strides that he's made, kind of under the radar strides that he's made so far. The 2 lefties up top, Zach McKinstry's been interesting this year. Kerry Carpenter's probably their best hitter overall. Only 97 plate appearances, suffered an injury, sitting 267, 320, 467 with a 200 ISO, 4 home runs in the small sample, but has been a decent lefty bat over time. Sturdy contact profile, 14.3% barrels, 44.4% hard hits, and you can see an okay rating in the home run model there at 706 to lead the 7.06 to lead the team. So moderate interest in Kerry Carpenter if we're going to Tigers. Javi Baez he's almost skippable. I know he's hitting cleanup, he's cheap, but he has just been flat this season. A .092 ISO at 62 WRC plus, 4 home runs. If you're not going to try, just retire. That's kind of my stance on Javi Baez right now. He has just been awful this year, and I don't think it's because all his talent is gone. I just think he is collecting a paycheck right now. It's what it seems like to me. Nick Maton, lefty, a little bit interesting. 2,600, 2,200, second base and third base eligible in the heart of the lineup. 6 home runs on the year. Only a 143 ISO, a 70 WRC plus. You're kind of just home run hunting if you go to Maton there. And it's not like he's a reliable home run hitter, a 33.9% hard hit. He's kind of maybe gotten lucky, struck the ball pretty well 6 times. Andy Ibanez, Miguel Cabrera, Matt Vierling. Miguel Cabrera's farewell tour continues. 129 plate appearances, 1 homer, 9 ribbies, 77 WRC plus. He's just kind of along for the ride as the Tigers go around the country. He's just collecting some kudos and some attaboys going around the country. Trey's saying what happened. Baez been so bad with attitude. Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's me kind of injecting that thought in here, but it's kind of been a thing with that player, and just seems like it might be the case of just not really giving a shit on a lousy team, getting paid a lot of money to not care. I feel like if he got traded to a contender, I don't know who needs him, who would want him. Let's say he got traded to, the Padres. I feel like he would come to life. I don't think he's this bad. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he has just lost his talent and he's, the Jose Abreu who's suddenly surging. We'll talk about that in a minute. Maybe he's lost his talent. I don't know. But yeah, I'm kind of speculating there when I'm saying it's low effort. Fanatic says, is it really a tinfoil hat if most conspiracies have been turned out to be true? The government invented the term to mislead people in the first place. All right, what are we getting into here? That's fun. All right, I always love seeing those the conspiracy theories pop up and then wondering what I missed in the chat. But Fanatic's one of the good ones out there. So if he says it, it's probably true. Let's see. Twins lineup. This is a really interesting lineup today. Going up against Matt Boyd, a flawed pitcher, maybe a little bit more talented than some of his past seasons where he gave up a tragic amount of home runs, was giving up a lot of home runs to fly balls. He's been better at home runs to fly balls the last couple of seasons, has shaved that down to like 11% this year after it was in the like high teens, approaching 20% a couple years ago. So I don't worry as much with Boyd about the home runs, but I think there's plenty of opportunity for the Twins to string together some sequencing. They could still certainly connect for a home run. It's not like he's been good for avoiding home runs, 3.56% home run rate. He's just been a little bit better at it than he used to be. Still sitting 5.55 ERA, a 4.79 xFIP. He walks way too many at 9.5%. 1.35 whip is too high. 22.1% strikeout rate is non-intimidating. What I do think you could get is Boyd paying off a $5,800 salary just on the back of strikeouts against this Twins lineup. 28.1% strikeout rate for this Twins lineup for the season. That is aggressive. They're a free swinging bunch. So there is strikeout potential for Boyd at that price. At $7,000 on FanDuel, we saw a lot of pitchers after I spent the entire show yesterday, by the way, talking about those four pitchers at the top price, and one of those four guys or three guys or whatever it was so likely to deliver the top score. I think every one of the guys that I say, like, hey, this guy's pretty good, could have a great start, but I don't know if he's going to be able to crack that, that level. I think every one of those guys exceeded all four of the Stars yesterday. So that's baseball. It's not like the Stars had bad games. I think Framber put up like a 40-point FanDuel night and had an okay start. And like, it's not like they went pop, but we just saw some success from guys like this. So I wouldn't scratch Boyd at $7,000. That buys you a good bet. That buys you a $3,000 plus hitter compared to some of the star level pitchers. So you need Boyd to deliver. You need that hitter to come through for you. But there's enough upside here that I think there is some potential for strikeout based upside at price, particularly as an SP2 on DK. A lot less enthused about it on FanDuel. But like I said, the Twins lineup seems super interesting to me as well. There's obviously home run potential. They might put a bunch of zeros into your lineup, but they might bend the slate with some power here. So I think there's good power. They get Byron Buxton back in the middle of the lineup. He's hitting fourth. Carlos Correa's there. Carlos Correa, for all his struggles, still has 9 home runs, a 205 ISO, has struck the ball very well. A 13.8% barrel rate is actually up 2.5 points from last year. So he's barreling the ball a little bit more, has not been as productive in the triple slash, obviously. The 101 WRC plus, it's all, the struggles are kind of baked into the $4,000, $2,900 price. Correa is cheap. I love the idea of leadoff Donovan Solano. He's 2,400, which is a great buy on the FanDuel slate at first base. He's dead min priced on DraftKings, and he doesn't block you from rostering Kirilloff because Kirilloff has outfield eligibility. FanDuel, you don't worry about it. You can put them both at first base and util. But that's important on DK because you can book that min-price player, stick Kirilloff in your outfield, and run, Solano, Correa, Kirilloff, Buxton, player of your choice from the bottom, or run a smaller stack. So I think that's huge, huge value for a player who, over 182 plate appearances, slashing 283, 374, 384, creating runs 17% better than average. He doesn't do anything individually. You can see a total lack of power, 1 home run on the season, 101 ISO. But he's going to correlate great with Correa, Kirilloff, Buxton, Farmer, Royce Lewis. Our guy Michael A. Taylor, who's got 10 totally unowned home runs and now hits 7th in this lineup for 2,200, 2,500. Why not? So I like going to this Twins team for value. I think there's upside there. It could completely die on the vine. It could fail on the back of a bunch of strikeouts, Matt Boyd finding success. But I do think there's potential here. Kyle Farmer's kind of sneaky, 2,500 on both sides, second base, shortstop eligibility, 4 homers and 134 plate appearances, hit mid-teens home runs the last couple of years. Sneaky little bat in the middle of the lineup there for Farmer. Royce Lewis has been productive, third base only on DK, shortstop and third gives him a little bit more potential on FanDuel for 3,000. 304, 304, 457 with a 110 WRC plus, 2 homers in his 46 plate appearances. Taylor, Jeffers, and Castro is a capable bottom third there. I obviously like Taylor the best, but Jeffers gives you a power hitting catcher for 2,600. He's got 3 home runs and 118 plate appearances, a sturdy barrel rate at 9.8%, a good hard hit rate of 50.8. upside for days at price against Matthew Boyd here for the Twins. So it'll be a little bit both sides there, but much more enthusiasm about both parts of the Twins than either part of the Tigers for me. Let's move on. Trey says, I wish you would have given some of that mojo to Strider. I'm a Braves fan. I've been hearing he might be banged up and pitching through it with Fried and others on IL. He's been getting smashed lately. Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about Strider as well, Trey. Like I said, I dumped him on my pal Louie there for the end of the season and got a nice return for it. But I just love that pitcher. I think he's so talented that I just don't want him to get hurt. I just want to see him pitch every 5 days. So hopefully not. We shall see. Squatch Happen says Buxton going yard tonight. Market. I wouldn't be surprised at all. He was. I have to think he was, if not the team leader among them in my home run model there. Yeah, 11.09 puts him in the team lead. Nice little spot for power upside, obviously. 10 home runs on the season, 225 ISO. He's a superstar. I mean, Buxton is an underpriced superstar. 5,000, 3,300. When he's in the lineup, he's every bit as talented as the Jordan Alvarez is and similar type players around baseball. Slightly less talented than Aaron Judge. I almost said Judge. Just because that's my guy. Acuna is actually, in my mind, the best overall player in the game right now. When he's healthy, and he's getting talked about in the chat a little bit right now. Trey, are we talking Strider in terms of the pitch mix question there? There's a lot of guys that are getting by on that, just power slider, sweeper slider, and a fastball mix, and just the dynamics of the way that he pitches. I do think it works for him a lot better than it works for anybody else, which is obviously, it's not, I'm not breaking new ground there. The dude's got a 40+% strikeout rate, like a 20% swinging strike rate. So it's just the dynamics of how those two pitches work coming out of his hand versus how they work for anybody else. It's just a better, more effective combination for him. For other guys, I do get concerned about a 2-pitch mix. I always want a third pitch. It doesn't have to be a plus pitch, but just a pitch that they can go to. And a fourth pitch is just gravy. Once guy starts getting into like the 5-pitch, the 6-pitch range, where it's just the Swiss Army knife of just like, I can throw anything, but none of it's that good. Then I also get concerned like in the other direction. So I want somebody to be specialized between like, 3 and 4 good pitches with 2+ pitches or plus pitches and one really effective pitch. And then, we can see what else we can get from the fourth one. Strider would be better. I served over time, I think, by developing a more reliable changeup that would, I think, help take some of the stress off. But that's my Strider take for pitcher who's not on the slate. What are my thoughts on Ohtani being the best player overall? I think he's definitely on the list. I mean, you have to account for his ability to pitch and hit the way he does. There's Acuna doesn't pitch, so it's kind of unfair to work that in when I'm comparing the two. And I prefer Acuna with his ability to hit for average, steal bases, hit for equal amount of power to Ohtani, and everything that he does. So if we're talking hitter, I think it leans toward Acuna. If we work in the pitcher side of it, the two-way aspect of Ohtani, it is difficult to deny Ohtani that mantle. So there's that. Good questions, gang. Let me dive back into the old game by game here. Let's see. We got. Do we have either of these lineups? We do not. Oh no, I'm sorry. We have the Braves. Braves is in here already. Yes, it is. All right. So another good opportunity for hitters. We're talking Acuna, so we can read some stats for him. 333, 405, 580 with a 246 ISO, creating runs 63% better than average with 15 homers and 29 steals in the books. A 15-30 season used to be pretty damn good and crazy impressive. He's done it in 311 plate appearances. He's going to finish 30-60 is not out of the question. Obviously, that's half of what half again what he's done. I don't know where he finishes, but it's going to be up there. It is going to be stratospheric. 16.5% barrel rate, 54.9% hard hits. And he's joined in a lineup with guys. Matt Olson dropping to 5th is interesting. Ozzie Albies ascending to 2nd. We had Albies hitting 4th in the projected with Sean Murphy dropping to 5th. So it's an interesting configuration on the top end, but it's your usual top 6 hitters here for Atlanta and basically the typical lineup here. So love going to this. Just look at all these home runs that these guys have hit. What's that? That's 84 combined home runs so far in a little over a third of the season from the top 6 hitters in that lineup. That's bonkers. These guys create runs like crazy. There's nothing to dislike about this lineup. I love the idea of Albies hitting second. He's a player, I talk about him all the time. He's underrated in my mind. He's always underpriced. He's always cheap in these DFS lineups. And he's got 15 home runs on the season. He's been a star over an extended stretch of time through his career. 230 ISO, creating runs 10% better than average while mostly hitting like 7th in the lineup. Just a great spot for him hitting second. Austin Riley has bounced along a little bit this season. His numbers are good, but they're down from where he was. 11 homers, a 174 ISO, 105 WRC+. This is a guy we expect to go over 30 home runs again this season. So it's a little bit off pace, but I'm not really worried. 45.2% hard hits is down a little. 9.6% barrels is down a lot. But I believe in Riley. I think it comes around as the season goes on. At this point, 5,300, 3,000, you're getting him at a discount for those struggles. So I'm fine with taking that. Sean Murphy, obviously a dynamite catcher play. Matt Olson is a tremendous first baseman. He costs 6,200, which is a weird price for a 5-hitter. Since the drop in the lineup, 3,800, a little bit more affordable on FanDuel, but I don't think you skip Olsen just because he's hitting a few spots later in the lineup. I think we're expecting big things against Kyle Freeland here. I basically skipped over talking about Freeland. $5,000 pitcher on DK, 7,500 on FanDuel. I see very, very little upside here. 15.7% strikeout rate for the season. He was a 17% strikeout guy last year. I just don't see it for Freeland. So on the idea of like clean innings for 5,000, it's really thin, even if you're going on that level. So he's not for me. At 7,500, I see no reason to do it on the FanDuel slate. On the bottom of the Braves lineup, Kevin Pillar is having a good season. 261, 511, 250. Or excuse me, 261, 289, 511, 250 ISO, 9% better than average, creating runs in his 97 plate appearances, and 6 home runs already is the oddball there. An 11.4% barrel rate. Pillar is like a defense-first outfielder. He's not really a major hitter, but the infrequent pop for 2,200, 25, you could stick it in the bottom of a lineup. The more interesting guys down there, Orlando Arcia, who I talk about a lot, 3 positions for only 2,900 on FanDuel, and just a very good player. 331, 383, 470 with 33% better than average, creating runs over 180 plate appearances, 5 home runs in the books. Who doesn't want to buy that with 3-position eligibility for 2,900? And then Michael Harris, kind of coming to life. All of a sudden, he's crept up to 221, 288, 364 with a 76 WRC+, a 143 ISO, none of which is good, but the way I wrote it in the article today was all of that looked a lot worse about 10 days, 2 weeks ago. So coming to life, 5 home runs, 7 stolen bases, 11.1% barrels, 47.9% hard hits. The contact never went away. In fact, both of those numbers are better than he was when he went 19-20 last year and won the Rookie of the Year. So sneaky Michael Harris at the bottom of the lineup at 3,500, 2,500. Would not skip him. Rockies side of things, if you're going there, you're going to, the McMahon, Diaz, Jones, Grichuk stretch here. Maybe we'll bolt on some Brenton Doyle. You guys know I don't like Profar all that much. I think Ezekiel Tovar is going to turn into a good player over time. He's got a good skill set, but it just hasn't really come through. Might just need more seasoning, more time to come around at this level. I think we were all expecting a little bit more from him. 5 home runs, 3 stolen bases, a 69 WRC plus over 249 rookie plate appearances. We were expecting a little bit more. I drafted him late in a bunch of season-long leagues and ended up cutting him fairly early. Who else? Ryan McMahon, obvious power from the left side of the plate, 10 home runs on the season, a 227 ISO. All of these guys, though, are facing AJ Smith-Shawver, who I think is a pretty good young pitcher. He's got the pedigree. He's their top ranked prospect. He's ranked in the 80s overall, so top 100 prospect in the game. Good strikeout upside. Didn't show a lot in that first start, only struck out 2, but gave us, 5 and change innings? It's in the article. Overall, he gave us a short 2 1/3 innings, I think, out of the pen against the Diamondbacks. Struck out 3 in that one, and they gave us. Let me just actually type the thing in here and pull them up so I can look at the game log as I'm stuttering through this. I wrote it all; it's all in the article, but I just want to look at that one start since we've only got the one start sample. It was 5 1/3, 2 strikeouts, 2 walks, but only allowed 2 unearned runs and 3 hits. It was against the Nationals, who are a low strikeout team and a lousy team overall, and against right-handed pitching, pretty lousy. But that's kind of the situation he's in right now against the Rockies. I think the Rockies are potentially worse than the Nationals because they strike out more. So I think there's nice upside here for Smith-Shawver, particularly at 5,500 on the DK slate. FanDuel's got him priced probably about right at 8,000. I think he's very usable at 8,000 on the FanDuel slate. So I will be going to shares of Smith-Shawver there. But I think there's I think there's major upside at the $5,500 price. That's my SP2. That's my value play of the day on DK. I think if you're looking for cash games, which somebody asked about yesterday, you probably just book that spot at 5,500 and then grab one of the premium pitchers, your favorite one out of those premium pitchers, and move on. It's just such a strong value play against this Rockies lineup, which is just atrociously bad against righties, bad on the road. There's just a lot of good reasons to like this young pitcher against this team at that price. So for me, it's Braves bats. They're going to be super popular. Shannon Lambert just mentioned it in the chat. Even if they hit, you probably won't min cash. I don't know about that. It depends on what you combine them with. You're certainly looking to combine them against some lower owned articles. Terry, if you don't mention a team in the play section of your article, my brain's skipping all over. I know I just said lower owned articles because I was reading somebody else's chat while I was trying to answer that question. Let me refocus that. So yeah, the Braves are going to be popular, but they're popular for a reason. There's a lot of upside potential here. So they might just have mandatory scores where it's just a matter of what did you put them together with? What did you get in your combination? So we talk about that a lot. I don't get overly concerned about team ownership totals. I don't get overly concerned about individual ownership totals for baseball because of how I'm stringing together hitters from the same lineup where I can get to, you go Acuna, Albies, Riley, obviously going to be super popular. But if you work in Orlando Arcia at 5% ownership, if you're working Kevin Pillar at probably around the same level, you're immediately offsetting from people who just straight line it down the first six hitters there and move on. So that gives you an offset. Then you put it together with a less owned second stack or a lower owned pitcher for value, which I think there are tons of. An easy way to differentiate and gain ground on the field when using a popular stack is by leaving salary on the table. So there are a lot of ways to use the Braves. I wouldn't say there's no point in stacking them. They're definitely going to be super popular though, Shannon. You're absolutely right about that. And it makes it a challenging spot because of that, because everybody's going to catch that rising tide and everybody's going to have that opportunity of what did you put it together with. So if something else for better prices goes off, that bends the slate in a different direction. And now you're stuck with all these Brave stacks floating around the mid and cash line with a lot of other Brave stackers. So I do totally take your point, but I'm not fully on board with the no point in stacking Braves part of it. Joseph is asking, if I don't mention a team in the play section of the article, does that mean I wouldn't stack them at all in 150? No, it means more they're not like a priority for me. I basically don't take any teams out. And I would typically like to have a blanket over, except for on like a 14-game slate where it just costs you shares of better options for like a team like the Nationals going up against an outstanding pitcher or some situation like that. Typically, I would like to have a couple shares, and a lot of those times you get those oddball teams as your good combination piece with a team like the Braves, where it was like, well, nobody went to that, but I happened to land on these 3 shares based on how I do things, where a lack of ownership pushed their potential up in my sorting tools. So I got to that combination that nobody else had, and that's what won me the slate. So I don't take those teams out, but it's like a deprioritizing. What I'm trying to hit on with the play recommendations is like, these are good play. These are the good plays from this group, and it's kind of targeted toward people who are building 5 lineups by hand. Just like, I'm not going to be able to throw a blanket over everything, so let me look at what the actual like top end plays are. That's kind of what I shoot for there. Rocks might be interesting. AJ Smith-Shawver, just a young guy, Shannon says. Yeah, I don't disagree that there is some value potential there in that Rockies lineup. I believe in the talent for Smith-Shawver. I think he's a very high-end young pitcher, but certainly in his second full start, third appearance in the show, a lineup with at least a handful of capable major league veterans could certainly get to him. There's some lefty power there. There are bats that I do like Nolan Jones. He's also a young kid, but he's been raking since his promotion. 68 plate appearances, 4 home runs, 4 stolen bases, a 155 WRC plus, 339, 397, 613. I really like Nolan Jones. I really like his potential. So I would go to some Rocky stacks. Like, that's a good example. I don't think I said play Rocky stacks. I might have mentioned it as like low owned value, something like that, or like, limited shares value, something along those lines. So I would go to them. I wouldn't totally exclude them. And I think they fit into that paradigm of what we were talking about. Guys, late in the lineup, Brenton Doyle, I believe in that power from the right side of the plate as well. 4 home runs, 9 stolen bases, a little bit of speed to mix in as well. 11.4% barrels. So an interesting enough hitter for 3,500, 2,700 from the bottom of the lineup. It'd be nice if they hit him 7th instead of Mike Moustakas, who is, essentially valueless at this point. 3 homers on the season for Moustakas and 119 plate appearances. I guess not valueless, but low value. Howard Castro, semi-interesting. Grichuk hitting for average, but not driving the ball as well this year. Diaz, good catcher for cheap prices. So, yeah, there's options in that Rockies lineup. Let's move on. Let's talk about the Angels with no Shohei Ohtani in our lives in the batting order, but definitely Shohei Ohtani on the mound, and a very real Shohei Ohtani facing Nathan Eovaldi in real life. They got to figure that situation out, which we've talked about a number of times. Two very expensive pitchers here. The bat has both Oviedo and Hill pitching for Pittsburgh. I had Oviedo. Yeah, I had Oviedo going. If it went to change to Dick Mountain, I'll update. Schmabs still has Oviedo. I hadn't seen Rich Hill, but I'm willing to accept that if that's what they want to do. Let me just Google Rich Hill real quick and see if there's any. Doesn't look like there's any reporting saying that Hill's getting this start. I'm not sure where that came from over on the bat. Let me know if if somebody spots an announced change. We'll make the change on the fly. But right now I've got Oviedo. So back to the Angels and the Rangers. Two premium pitchers in this one. 10-7 on both sides for Ohtani. 10-8, 11,000 for Nathan Eovaldi here. I think you can go to either one of these guys pretty enthusiastically. They're both facing tough lineups. It's probably a better overall spot for Eovaldi, but Ohtani's got the better upside for strikeouts just in general. 33.3% strikeouts for Ohtani. He's had issues with walks this year. The walk rate is way up at 11.1%, but everything else has been fine. His walk rate's basically doubled. I'm not entirely sure why. The swinging strikes have come down a little bit with the CSW dipping, in conjunction with that. But most of this other stuff has been working just fine. A little bit more in terms of home runs, but not that much more in terms of hard hits. A little bit more in terms of barrels, but that's probably just happenstance. Launch angle's actually down. The strikeouts are exactly the same, 33.3 this year, 33.2 last year. I don't think there's anything wrong with Ohtani. I think just, any of the clunkers have just been happenstance. So we're getting a little bit of a discount at 10-7 maybe, but he's going up against a high-scoring lineup that's just filthy with talent. The Rangers check in fairly high prices, maybe a little bit discounted for the matchup against Ohtani if we think about these players against other pitchers where we've seen them, but definitely still fairly high priced. I do like the opportunity to grab some of this team at low ownership, though. I doubt that they'll be popular against Ohtani. So that's a spot where I think maybe, you take talent at low ownership, even with a good pitcher on the mound, and hope that you get there. So for a few shares of limited shares, I can definitely grab some Marcus Semien, some Corey Seager, some Nathaniel Lowe if he's back in the lineup, Adolis Garcia, Josh Young, Jonah Heim, Ezekiel Duran from the bottom of the lineup. Grossman and Taveras have been semi-productive. Taveras is having a very nice season. I talked about that yesterday. So I think there's bats enough in the Rangers side. Similar story with the Angels, but you lose Ohtani, so that hurts your stacking ability just to draw that straight line down the lineup. You've got some productive bats. You've got plenty of power upside in that Angels lineup, but Eovaldi's been very, very good this year. 1.20% home run rate on a 4.8 degree average launch angle, 6% barrels. That shouldn't be ignored. He's been cutting home run power. So if you're taking home runs away from these Angels, we're taking Shohei Ohtani away from these Angels, it really limits the upside potential for DFS scoring purposes. He's still got to navigate Ohtani in the real life lineup. He's still got Mike Trout to deal with. Rendon hasn't hit for much power, but he's getting on base. Thais, Drury, Renfroe, Jared Walsh. There's a nice little power core there, but Eovaldi's been really, really good. 24.9% strikeouts, a 2.49 ERA, 3.37 xFIP, not walking anybody, which is a sustained trait for him. So I like the spot for Eovaldi, but by the same token as with the Rangers, I will go to some shares of the obvious bats from the Angels because I expect they'll be fairly low owned, and you can still. If you left off the leadoff man because Ohtani's not there and you want to, or you just decide, hey, we'll skip that spot and hope Ohtani doesn't knock him in, you could do that, or you could just take a straight line stack from 3 through 7 and go Trout, Rendon, Thais, Drury, and Renfroe, or work in Jared Walsh, depending on what comes out in the confirmed lineup. There's definitely a lot of cheap prices in this lineup for the upside that a Drury and a Renfroe give you for home run power in general. And it's not like Eovaldi is immune to giving up home runs. The upside those guys give you for power, the upside that Jared Walsh gives you for power from 2 years ago hasn't really come through this year, but he's only 2,400, 2,300. In 67 plate appearances, he's yet to barrel a ball, has 0 home runs, a 107, 254, 161 triple slash. So it hasn't been pretty over 67 plate appearances. But the guy hit a bunch of home runs 2 years ago. So I believe in the lefty power to come back eventually. And he's really cheap right now. So with some reluctance, I think from here through here, you're maybe stacking. I wouldn't necessarily leave Rengifo out. If he hit up here, it would be a little bit better. But 17 home runs last season, like we've talked about. He hasn't been nearly as good this year overall, but I think there's a little bit of upside there. But again, it's primarily the pitchers for me. Small shares, moderate doses of either lineup is fine, and you're probably getting good players at low ownership is the point there. But it's Ohtani and it's Eovaldi. If I had to say one or the other, like I said, I think the spot is probably a little bit better for Eovaldi, but you get more strikeout potential, and it's coming through the model a little bit better for Ohtani, and the price is better. So probably DFS-wise, I would lean Ohtani, I think, despite what I said before about Eovaldi potentially being in the better spot, if that makes any sense at all. Did anybody know any weather, by the way, in Atlanta? Anything change in the Atlanta weather? That was a concern at one point. I just want to make sure that that's another thing that could certainly limit Atlanta bats. And it would limit if we had the idea of a stop and start in Atlanta, that would limit my exposure to Smith-Shawver, because I would be concerned that he goes 3, they yank him, he sits for 45 minutes. They're not going to put a prize rookie back in that game. That would be the concern with Smith-Shawver. It's probably okay on DK at that 5,000, 5,500, whatever it was price. If you get 3 innings and a handful of strikeouts, he could still deliver enough value. But it's not ideal. It's obviously not what we're hoping for. And that would just cut the knees out of the FanDuel play. So that would be the concern in Atlanta for me, is that rain that was, last I saw, it was supposedly like hovering around the ballpark, but would land and be slow moving if it hit. So that's your concern there. No updates on my phone keeps flashing updates, but none of them are weather related. Damn, Ketel Marte, 442-foot home run. Pretty good. Roth update says models are coming in much lower coverage of storms around Atlanta. All right, so that's I take that as a good sign. So hopefully that won't be a problem here. Let's move on. We've got Oviedo on the mound right now for the Pirates. I think there's a little bit of potential in rostering him against the Cubbies, and I think there's a lot of potential in rostering Marcus Stroman against the Pirates, because this is one of those cold, wind blowing in toward home plate days in Chicago. Trey's saying 43 to 46% chance of storms from 7 to 8 should pass. Okay. All right. So if we're getting that, then we're probably looking at like a delayed start situation, which is fine. I'm fine with playing delayed starts. It just gets concerning around the pitching if we get that stop and start. So that's the better scenario for me. But in Chicago, wind aggressively blowing in toward home plate on a cool evening favors pitching dramatically. So I think there's even more potential than we're showing in the model for Marcus Stroman, for sure. He's pitching very well this year. 2.42 ERA, a 3.60 xFIP, 21.7% strikeouts is slightly up from last year. Has always been good at limiting barrels, limiting launch angle, limiting home run upside, and he's doing that again this season. 3.5% barrels, a 2.1 degree average launch angle, 1.48% home run rate. Just very, very good at limiting home run potential. So between the wind, Stroman's knack for keeping the ball down, keeping it in the yard, I'm really not that interested in Pirates bats here. There is the potential for some use, there's the potential for maybe some sequencing, maybe stringing together some hits, and you've got some effective guys for that in that lineup. So they're not a total write-off for me, but if I'm ranking stacks, these guys are probably pretty close to the bottom of the board just based on the conditions and the pitcher on the mound here. But if you're going that way, if you're rostering Pirates bats, it's McCutchen, it's Reynolds, it's Connor Joe off the top. Carlos Santana came to life, big night last night, but he's been bad through the season. I wouldn't skip him. He's only 2,900, 2,800 at first base, so it's fine. Hopefully we get some life out of the switch hitter. He's been a productive bat over the course of time. A lot of good home run seasons from Carlos Santana. He's just pushing the end of the career. Jack Suwinski's been great for home run upside this year. 15 on the season at 299 ISO, 6.56 in the home run model. That doesn't factor in the wind. So that's another ding that would probably be cut in half again. But like Stroman's got him basically cut in half, and then I would cut that number again by the wind. So that's, major downturn there for the potential for Suwinski, but he's got the best shot at a home run tonight from that team. Ryan Hayes, productive enough, I guess. 91 WRC plus. We need to see more. We should see more power, like we've talked about a bunch of times. 261 is okay on the batting average. 302 should be higher on base. 410 definitely should be higher for a guy who hits the ball 48.5% hard hits. So I expect more from Hayes, but I don't get it. Like, I'm not saying that I expect it over time, because we've seen him for a while now. Just seems like he should be a better player than this. You can use him though at 3,900, 3,000. Like that's the correct price for a player like what he does. G1 Bay, Marcano, Jason DeLay, mix and match parts from the bottom of the lineup. Marcano, Bay, 19 stolen bases on the year, but only an 87 WRC plus. Marcano doesn't get on base enough to utilize his speed, 299 on base percentage. DeLay, a cheapo catcher with a moderately productive hit tool. So limited interest in the Pirates. A lot of interest in Marcus Stroman. I don't know about the Oviedo side. 20.8 projection, probably a little higher given the conditions. Definitely the right price. I think he's more usable at 7,200 as an SP2 on DK. I don't know if I want to burn shares on him on the FanDuel slate. I think this Cubs team has enough talent, just enough knack for getting on base. You've got all these good on-base percentages through the top of their lineup. So that handful of hitters is just potentially going to frustrate him enough. He's got a 10.6% walk rate, only a 19.6% strikeout rate on the season. I think just based on the idea of a younger pitcher getting a little bit frustrated, giving up a little bit of on base to these guys in bad conditions. It's not saying it's leading me to the Cubs because they're going to be similarly limited for power upside, but I think the run creation, the idea of a handful of runs and just taking the top off the potential for DFS purposes on Oviedo's side is in play here. 4.16 ERA, a 4.76 xFIP on the season, giving up a decent actually on the home runs, 1.56% home run rate, good barrel rate allowed, 39.4% hard hits, 88.3 miles an hour exit velo on a 9.3 angle. You can see the difference there. The hard hits are actually less than Stroman's. The exit velo is a little bit less than Stroman's, and the home run rate is around the same thing. But I just get a little bit more concerned because of the elevated launch angle. It's a difference at a 9.3 degree average launch angle. Not that that's high, but it's a little bit different. That doubles his barrel rate. So it's not like he's been bad for power, but it's just different than what Stroman does. So a little bit more upside for the Cubbies, but there's not a lot there. There's not a lot to like. They haven't been hitting a ton of home runs anyway this season. But if I'm going there, it's to those high on base guys. It's to Nico Horner, Seiya Suzuki, Ian Happ, Dansby Swanson, Chris Morrell through the heart of the lineup. That's their power. That's their core for getting on base and creating runs. Taubman's getting on base at a very good clip. He's up in the leadoff role now because he's getting on base at a 415 clip, creating runs 20% better than average. But it's not great. He's a quad A type guy. He's priced like at 2,600, 2,400. You can bolt him on for sure. If you're going to Cub stacks, I probably would. But I limit my expectations from a player like that. Like there's 83 plate appearances. Let's talk after another 200 plate appearances and see where that on base is. See what the production looks like. So limited exposures to the Cubs. Definite interest in Marcus Stroman. Tempered expectations around the Pirates pitcher. The conditions could push it a little bit up, and the prices are right. So like I said, 7,200 on DK. I think you work in some shares, but it's not great. Let's see what everybody's saying. DJ and Stoner saying Boyd, Lowe, Semien, Seager, Taveras, Riley, Acuna, Harris, Albies only play if you want your hopes and dreams crushed. Fair enough. Trey says he's been impressed by Stroman and just gets people to ground out. Yeah, he's always been a good ground ball pitcher, always been a better real life pitcher, but has had some effective DFS spots and is priced appropriately at 8,700 on DK. In this matchup, finds you a few additional strikeouts at that price and you're cruising. 10.5 for Stroman, by the way, is an aggressively high price on the FanDuel slate. I think that's going to keep his ownership pretty low, especially by comparison to getting Shohei Ohtani, I think, for cheaper. That's a very high Marcus Stroman price. So they were probably a little bit high when they made it, but I'll be a little bit high when I put it in my lineups later. So it all evens out. Let's move on from this one. 3 games to go. Short slate. Big Bino says, I wondered, is Grove known none of the Sox are hitting the curve this season? You think it's possible he can tame them with that one pitch? I'm showing a lot of upside for the White Sox against Grove here. We'll get to him. I do think there's talent there. No doubt about it. But I think there's more upside for the White Sox hitting, and they're showing a lot of power. They're actually my first or second ranked stack overall in terms of their power, their projections for the day. So no, I'm not expecting Grove to tame the White Sox here. Hopefully, because I'm going to have a shitload of them. Nationals. I will not have a shitload of the Nationals. I am very interested in Christian Javier on the other side of this one, though. 10-2, 10-3. So Javier's also cheaper than Stroman? Am I crazy? Yep. Javier's cheaper than Stroman on the FanDuel slate. That's bonkers. I get that the conditions are good, but that's ridiculous. Bino doesn't like Grove, just trying to find a reason. Yeah, Grove's not like a high-end prospect guy, but I think he's better than what we've seen from him. But I just think he's a target today. So we'll get to that one in a sec. But Javier, for cheaper than Marcus Stroman, obviously monumental upside. He's not striking out as many this year. I was looking at it. The slider has been the culprit in that situation. I wrote about it in the article, which is up on rotoscouts. But long story short, he lost a little bit of bite on the slider. He's down about 100 RPMs on the spin, lost about a half a mile an hour. And the biggest part about it is he lost about 2 inches of horizontal movement. So it took it from being like an unhittable slider with a significantly high whiff rate, reduced the whiff rate. It's still an effective pitch, but it's just not like a superhuman pitch. It was 5 point something inches better than the average horizontal movement on a slider, and now it's only like 1 point something better. Based on StatCast measurements. So that's the culprit in the reduction in swinging strikes, the reduction in 20 by like 9 percentage points down to a 24.8% strikeout rate. I just think he's still a really, really good pitcher. And he's going up against this weak Nationals lineup. They're better against lefties. They're not that good overall. Against righties, they're second from the bottom. Only the Tigers are worse for WRC plus against righties. They strike out like 24-ish% of the time, I think it was. So they strike out more against righties. I like the upside for Christian Javier here. So I'll have a bunch of Javier at the price, probably more than I'll have some of those other pitchers. I expect he'll be popular, but I don't really care. Price on DK 10-2 is perfectly fine. That's in line with his talent and some of the other stars on the slate. So major opportunity for Christian Javier. At the same time, 7,800, 8,600 across the slate for Mackenzie Gore. Little bit of upside there. He pitched really, really well in March and April. Was a 30+% strikeout rate, 3 and change xFIP. The xFIP hasn't changed all that dramatically because the xFIP was still okay in May, but the strikeouts came down. They were around 28%, which was where his overall number is now. The power went up a little bit. He gave up, I think, 2 home runs in March and April, and then 6 home runs in May, and he's already given up 3 home runs in only like 11 innings in June. Strikeout rate's down to like 19% in that very small June sample. So it's gotten progressively a little bit worse for Mac Gore here as the season's gone on. But I still believe that there's talent here. He was a highly regarded prospect coming up, figured it out to start the season this year. And it's not like we're dealing with a situation where his price is still elevated because of that good performance. The price is kind of either, I forget whether it's come down alongside him or it never really went up. I forget which the case is. But either way, we're getting him at a price that's in line with what he's doing on the mound overall. So 69 innings, 28.2% strikeout rate, and 13 starts. There's enough potential there. The Astros haven't been themselves this year, haven't been great this year. There's no Jordan Alvarez in the lineup. Chas McCormick in the leadoff spot, love that. And going up against the lefty, definitely love that. It's a both-sided situation for me. I will definitely have shares of Astros. I'll definitely have shares of Chas McCormick in the leadoff role, Altuve, Alex Bregman, Kyle Tucker. Those are all kind of no-brainer. Don't need to explain them options. Maybe explain Chas McCormick a little bit. It's just based on his premium contact that he typically finds. 6 home runs and 129 plate appearances. A 219 ISO is very good. A little bit of speed and just very interesting in that leadoff spot ahead of those other hitters. Altuve is obvious star caliber second baseman. Not even that expensive. 4,900, especially on DK. 39 is about right. Maybe a 100 or so cheap on the FanDuel slate, but 49 is about 1,000 too cheap for Altuve on DK. So good price on him. Good price on Bregman over there. Bregman's been down a little bit this season, but 9 home runs, a 105 WRC plus. Tucker's been down a little bit this season. 9 home runs, 11 steals, a 119 WRC plus. That's yeah, Shannon, I resisted making the joke for like the third or fourth time. I've said exactly that on other shows of it just means they're not hitting, they're not doing this, they're not doing that, they're probably not cheating anymore. Yeah. Firm belief in that's probably part of the problem, but they've also had some injuries. They've had guys like Bregman underperform. They've had Jose Abreu arrive as a free agent signing and just been tragically bad, but maybe coming to life. I promised everybody we'd talk about that. Jose Abreu, 3 home runs in the last 7-8 days, maybe coming to life a little bit. Pushed his way up to a 233, 280. Excuse me. I think a little bug just flew down my throat. 233, 289, 320 triple slash, a .087 ISO, a 69 WRC plus. So the overall numbers are still bad, but if he's coming to life a little bit, I want to be an early buyer. I already missed a few home runs. I think I had a few shares the other day, but I think there is a little bit of potential there at 3,100 and 2,600 for a dude who, the power was absent last year, He hit 15 home runs, 14 of which came before August. Then he hit 1 home run from early August last year through like mid-May this year. But over the course of time, 30 home runs 2 years ago, 261, 351, 481 with a 126 WRC plus. We're probably going to get more of this guy, who was 304, 378, 446 with a 137 WRC plus. The power was gone, like I said last year, but if you're going to hit around this, create runs like this for the rest of the year, sign me up for some early shares of Jose Abreu. I'm not going to get carried away with it. I don't know if it's real yet. It's a couple of home runs for a guy who's been tragically bad for an extended period of time at this point. But that's the kind of thing you want to jump on, and that's the kind of thing that can win you a tournament. It might be too late to do that. We don't know. He might get popular in Astro stacks today. We don't know. And Matt Gore has been, moderately effective at limiting power. The power numbers were a lot better at the beginning of the season for Gore. Now he's up to a 9.9% barrel rate, 3.74% home runs, 42.9% hard hits. So that's another area in which he's just gotten progressively worse as the season's gone on. So a little bit of potential there. It's basically like 1 through 6 as the focus bats for the Astros, and then you work in little shares of Corey Julks, who's been slates in the past, Jake Myers, who's been productive, 191 plate appearances, 6 homers, a 104 WRC plus for Jake Myers. He's one to work in that like weird Michael A. Taylor performs at no ownership type of a slate breaker for 2,300, 2,600. Martin Maldonado, same story, 2,100, 2,200. We've all seen him do that no ownership at the bottom of the lineup. He's waiting for the weather to warm up. Yeah, it could be. Never know, I guess. Nat side of things, if you're going there, you're going to Lane Thomas, Joey Meneses, maybe some Eimer Candelario, who's better against righties, but it's Christian Javier. I'm not really that interested in Nationals bats here. They're just bad. Lane Thomas has been effective this year with a 115 WRC plus. Candelario's now at a 103 over 269 plate appearances. I'm not going to count the Corey Dickerson 101 WRC plus. Everybody else below average for run creation. Meneses is having an okay year with the stick, 297, 341, 386, but not hitting for power. Dickerson, Ruiz, I've told you guys a few times, I believe in Ruiz in the long term, but I don't think the cold in that dome in April. Yeah, exactly. But I don't think that it's a day-to-day situation with Ruiz. I think there's long-term potential there, and he does have a better expected slugging this year than his actual. But I think we might just need some more development time before we can really go to it reliably. Dom Smith, C.J. Abrams, Alex Call kind of weak on the back end there. Guardians, Padres. I'm kind of interested in Logan Allen here. You can see he projects pretty well. 9,100 on FanDuel is a problematic price for him. 6,900 is a lot better of a price on the DK slate. I think you can get invested in some shares of Logan Allen on DK. I'll have some on FanDuel. I think it's in play. Like I said at the top of the show, we just saw last night a lot of guys who were looking just like this, where it was like, it's a little bit higher than I want to pay for this guy, but he projects well and blah, 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 blah. Came through just last night, beat out all the high-priced, high-end pitchers that were in better matchups than these guys were. That's the kind of situation you're paying for at 9,100 with Logan Allen tonight. I'm going to buy into the projection. I'm going to ride with it a little bit here. So I won't get totally carried away, but I think I'll have some shares, and I expect he's not going to be that popular. Maybe he is. Maybe it's at 69 on DK. He'll probably push a little bit more popularity, but I can't really see him being all that popular at the FanDuel price especially. 51 and 2/3 innings, 9 starts, 22.8% strikeouts, a 3.89 xFIP. Better on the ERA at 3.31. Has been good at limiting power, 2.23% home run rate. Very good for a rookie starter just coming up with not like a blazing fastball pitch mix, but he works in like the low to mid 90s, has a good mix of stuff and effective pitches, but doesn't blow hitters away. So sitting at a 12.4% swinging strike rate is pretty good as a starting point for this kid. So I like Logan Allen here. I'm getting invested a little bit in the lefty. You've obviously got a deadly top end. Fernando Tatis homered last night. He's got 14 on the season. He was sitting at 17 plus yesterday in the home run model. He's right back there today, 17 plus. So I do think it's a both-sided situation. Top end of the Padres, top heavy lineup is the obvious spot. 14 home runs, 10 stolen bases for Tatis, a 145 WRC plus. Soto right on his heels with a 144 WRC plus, a 211 ISO, 11 home runs. Soto's really cheap, 5,400, 3,500 for that hitter. Way too cheap. 500 too cheap at least on FanDuel, probably 5,600 too cheap on the DK slate. So get yourself some Juan Soto. 12.8% barrel rate, 59.3% hard hit rate for the season. Some of those balls, maybe in other seasons would have traveled over the wall. It's just... It's just too good a player to be priced at that level. Manny Machado, 4,800, 2,900. Speaking of players who are too good to be priced where they are, this is Manny Machado, folks. Let's not worry about the current season. Let's just put him in lineups at those prices. Gary Sanchez, 3,500, 3,100, 6 home runs in 61 plate appearances. Everybody knows I love me some Gary. If you need catchers, I think you roster Gary. If you don't need catchers, you take him or leave him. $3,100 power hitter. You know about the flaws. You know he's going to strike out at a 30+% rate. But when he makes contact, the ball travels. Xander Bogaerts, another underperformer, another star caliber player who is just underpriced. 4,700, 3,000. I'm just going to not really worry about the wrist. I'm really going to not worry that much about the lack of performance the last 2 months. I'm just going to put Bogaerts in lineups when I'm rostering Padres and hope that other people don't do it. Nelson Cruz, 2,400, back in our lives. He's a first baseman on DraftKings. He's an outfielder on FanDuel for 2,500. He's got 4 home runs and an 86 WRC plus with a 168 ISO and 113 plate appearances. That 6.79 would have been an 18 in change, probably last year against the lefty. Definitely the year before against the lefty, and over time throughout his career, he's just excelled at pounding left-handed pitching. I don't think that's all gone. 47.2% hard hits for the season in the tiny sample and 9.7% barrel rate. Nelson Cruz against the lefty for 2,400 or 2,500 across sites. There's too much programming in my brain to be able to ignore that completely for DFS purposes. So I'll have some. I don't expect much. I think he's mostly done. I think he's mostly gone. But there's still a little bit of Nelson alive in there somewhere. I think he's like 43 now, pushing my age. But I'll go to some shares. It won't be my highest owned Padres bat. It won't be in a ton of my Padres stacks. But a few shares here and there. Maybe even a sneaky one-off at price. But it's not great. You don't look at it as the Nelson Cruz of old against the lefty. Sanchez is out. I didn't get the confirmed lineup. So Gary's out. Nelson's in. Ha-Seong Kim miscast hitting 5th. That's a weird one. Why not just put Cruz there or put like Trent Grisham there? That's a waste of a 5th spot. So Ha-Seong Kim's going to be hitting 5th for whatever that's worth. Moderate counting stats: 5 home runs, 11 stolen bases on the year, 97 in the WRC plus. Not great from Kim, but I guess you can use him if he's hitting 5th. More of a correlated scoring play. So this is the confirmed version of the lineup. So Tatis, Soto, Machado, Bogaerts, Kim, Cruz, Dixon, Grisham, Nola is kind of a weak back end. A lot of low batting averages, low on base percentages, 86, 70, 89, 34 in the WRC plus department to round it off from Nelson down. So again, it's just a top heavy team. That's just how they're constructed. They win ball games when those guys produce oddball games from the bottom of the lineup, or when the stars produce. It's very, very top heavy. So some Logan Allen interest for sure. No interest in Ryan Weathers. I don't know what Weathers is going to be expected to do in this one. 8 starts, 38 1/3 innings, 15.4% strikeouts. He's been yanked back and forth between the pen and the rotation. The last couple starts were short starts. One was at Coors Field. Didn't give up all that many runs. Let me pull it back up in the game log here. But I don't think we're getting more than like 3-4 innings, even though I don't think it's a traditional like opener role. He went, last time out was 3 innings, 11 hitters, struck out 2, allowed a home run, just 1 run and 3 hits, but got yanked after 3 innings in Coors. I don't know if there was an injury or if the rain came in or what the case was. Start before that was a 1 2/3 inning, but gave up 4 runs, 4 earned, 5 runs, 2 homers. So I could see coming out of that one early. At Miami, 4 innings, 3 earned, 4 strikeouts, 3 walks, and a homer. Wasn't getting tattooed. So he just hasn't been going deep. And then like they had him pitching out of the pen for a little while. So just been bouncing him around a little bit. And overall, we just don't want him because he's not that good. So like we didn't need to waste that time. But I just wanted to talk about it in terms of what he's likely to do tonight. Because 6,500, 6,000, some people might be tempted to look at that as a value price. Not at a 15.4% strikeout rate. Not with a 5.25 xFIP. Even if he gives us 5 innings. It's just going to be 5 lousy innings. Not that I think that necessarily leads us to Guardians bats, but what do we all know the Guardians do well? Avoid strikeouts, exactly. So there's no upside for Weathers. There is maybe a touch of upside for the Guardians. They're at least cheap. Like 4,500, 3,900 is fairly cheap for Jose Ramirez. DK anyway, 39 for his performance this year is maybe about right. Maybe $200 too cheap for what he's done in years past. 281, 349, 490 for Jose. 10 home runs, half of which came in the last week when he got mad last week that he was. We were talking about his bad performances, but it's not like he's been outrageous this season. Everybody else in the lineup has been underperforming, including Josh Naylor. Though WRC plus is nice for Naylor at 112 over 232 plate appearances, he's pulled himself together. But I think we expected him to have more than 8 home runs at this point. 286, 332, 457. That's effective enough. So Naylor's in play if you're going to Guardians. Ahmed Rosario's in play just on the idea of talent from years past, I guess. Same with Andres Jimenez. Same with Josh Bell. Those are at least effective enough prices for those guys. So, excuse me. That's my core of bats if I'm going to the Guardians. And then if I'm going to a bunch of Guardian stacks, I'm bolting on Steven Kwan. I'm maybe taking a few shots with these guys, but it's not many of these guys. It's really just right here for me from the Guardians. Kwan would be the best of the also-ran options, and he was a good correlated scoring player last year. Last season, got on at a 373 clip, created runs 24% better than average, stole you 19 bases in 638 plate appearances while slashing 298, 373, 400. This year, the average is gone. The on-base skills have dropped significantly. Obviously, no power. He didn't hit for any power last year. Only a 91 WRC plus, so 9% worse than average creating runs. 11 stolen bases is kind of pushing this total, but just hasn't been getting on base enough. He would be over this total if he was getting on base at this kind of a clip. So it just hasn't been good for Kwan. I think there's still ability there. He comes at a cheap price, so he'd be the guy I would pick more often than not to add to this group of hitters or as an alternative over these guys. But it's not great. You're taking a group of hitters who are moderates to, like mid-range home run, mid-range stolen base guys like Rosario and Andres Jimenez the last couple of years. 11-18, 11-13 for Rosario, 17-20, and 5-11 for Jimenez. So moderate talents like that in an underperforming year, you're just grabbing them against a bad pitcher, which would be at worst like moderate mid-range type ownership, good prices. So I don't mind going to some Guardians, but it's only a mid-range priority stack for me. It's or a lower mid-range priority stack on a fairly short slate. Rank them like 8, 10, somewhere on there. I don't know where my stacks board had them. Stacks board's got them even lower. 12th by projection, 11th by FanDuel value, a little bit more value at 8th by DK value. That's probably exclusively because you're getting Jose Ramirez at 4,500 that you get that DK value bump. But if you're looking at the stacks board, it's not great. What you're playing for is the a little bit of home run potential and going up against the bottom ranked pitcher on my board. So that's what you get from the Guardian side of things. No interest in Ryan Weathers. Some interest in top half Padres. Mix and match the bottom half if you're building a bunch of them. Definite interest in Logan Allen, particularly at the DK price. FanDuel price is interesting enough to hopefully offset some ownership. Last game on deck. We talked briefly about Michael Grove. We'll dig in a little bit more. See what's going on in the chat. Babe Ruth is out for the Padres. See Gary Sanchez. Yep. My guy. Love me some Gary. Still, I wish he was still on the X. I'll take Jose Trevino catching every day if I can have Gary Sanchez at DH. This game brought to you by the D-Train. The only way to travel. D-Train is good if you're looking for a trip to Yankee Stadium, if you're looking to buy some crack, if you're looking to watch a houseless person pee in public. That's your D-Train. Always a fun ride. Let's talk White Sox. Let's talk Dodgers. So I said the White Sox showing some major power upside here in my model going up against Michael Grove. Grovey sitting at a 90-mile-an-hour average exit velo, 7.3% barrels. The barrels aren't tragic. The hard hit's not tragic. 3.51% home runs isn't awful, but I'm interested in this exit velo. I'm interested in this launch angle with a few of these home run-inclined White Sox bats. He doesn't strike that many hitters out, 20.2%. This is only in 25 innings over 5 starts. I think they used him as an opener last time, so this is his 6th start, 7th appearance. I think he went, it was 4 innings as a, not as an opener, as a bulk reliever rather, following an opener. He went like 4 innings in that start, in that appearance, and now back to a full-time starter here in this one. So I think you're getting him for a regular start, but I have no real interest at 5,200, 6,100 across sites. If you wanted to throw a dart or two on the DK slate on the idea that he's got maybe a little bit of talent, and this White Sox team has underperformed all year. I wouldn't totally begrudge you because that's a cheap hitter. That's like an effective average hitter price over there. But it's not great. Last year, 6 starts, 29 and a third, 18% strikeout rate, a 4.77 xFIP, a 4.51% home run rate, 43.4% hard hits, a higher average exit velo at 91.6 miles an hour. So this is where our power upside's coming from with these White Sox bats. I think there's enough premium contact that you can succeed by going to the White Sox. So when we do that, we're dealing with a really struggling Tim Anderson off the top. We're dealing with a scuffling Andrew Benintendi off the top, which is problematic. The first 2 hitters on the lineup, you want to be delivering a little bit more than that. Where they're still successful is in limiting strikeouts. Timmy's up a little bit from 15.7% last year, so 3 points up at 18.7%. But it is an effective hitter who can put the ball in play, and in years past has been an excellent hitter. 4 seasons in a row, Tim Anderson's hit over 300, if you care about batting average. He's hit 6 home runs last year, 13 stolen bases because he was hurt for half the season. 2 years ago, 17, 18. He's a good provider of counting stats, good provider of correlated scoring, average on base when he's going right, just not going right. But I still believe the talent's still there. Might be fighting through something, has definitely fought through some injuries. 209 plate appearances, though, on the season. No homers, only 7 steals, and he's had those 7 steals for a few weeks now. So it's not great, but he's priced down for his talent. 4,200, 2,700. We're getting him at a discount, which I'll take. Andrew Benintendi, similar kind of a story. Usually a 300-ish kind of a hitter, a guy who can get on base reliably, a guy who helps create runs. Doesn't hit for any kind of power, but he hits in the past for at least single-digit home run totals. Like, he should have 1 or 2 by now, and he doesn't. The barrel rate has dropped from an already low 5.1% to 3%. The hard hits have plummeted from 38.5 to 28.6. So he's just not driving the ball at all, let alone not hitting home runs. We didn't expect home runs, but we expected some doubles. We expected some run creation. 86 WRC plus is problematic for a guy like Benintendi. Now we get to the quality. Luis Robert, overall home run pick for the day. 14.89 in the model, one of the highest numbers in the model overall. 16 on the season, pounding the ball, 268 ISO, 13% barrel rate. Love me some Luis Robert. I love me some Eloy Jimenez, 11.5% barrel rate, 47.1% hard hits. Guy just can't stay healthy, can't stay in the lineup, which sucks because he's a major talent when he's in there. 6 homers on the season, a 177 ISO, 7% better than average creating runs. Grab him while he's healthy. He's cheap, 4,300, 3,200. Let's see, Jasmani Grandal, Andrew Vaughn. I almost Andrew Vaughn. Why not? We'll say that one like that. Andrew Vaughn, Jake Berger, Gavin Sheets. I saw Larry in the chat mention Sheets, and my brain got ahead and started saying the middle of the name Gavin, I think, at the beginning of Andrew Vaughn's name there. But Gavin Sheets in the 8th spot for the dead minimum price, 2,600 on FanDuel, 2,000 on DK. First base and outfield eligibility makes him a little bit more useful positionally on the FanDuel slate. You can flex him and Andrew Vaughn in and out of that first base spot and then use all 3 outfielders if you wanted to. But you've also got the util spot over there to work with. So, yeah, I think Gavin Sheets is somewhat interesting down there. 225, 297, 391 on the season, but has hit 7 home runs. The idea, at least, of power. Not a great contact profile from Sheets, but you're not paying anything for it. So I don't really sweat this when I'm paying that. Doesn't really matter. Similar story on FanDuel at 26. Romy Gonzalez, no real interest in the bottom, but Jake Berger, after I compared him to Brent Rooker yesterday, Jake Berger went out and hit another 2 home runs last night, so he's up to 15 on the year. Maybe a little bit more believable than Rooker. I haven't looked at the side-by-sides, but it's similar. Like, you get concerned around a 31.6% strikeout rate and only 4.6% walks. That just crushes your ability to get on base. So once he stops hitting for average, once balls stop dropping in, he's only at a 250 average. And once the balls stop traveling over the fence with regularity, I think you see that similar Rooker-esque kind of a dip. What I wanted to check out and forgot to was the whiff rate on every different type of pitch. Rooker's big issue was that he was originally that good month was striking out at like just an 18% clip overall when he's a 30+% strikeout guy. So his strikeouts were really limited, and he was doing that while still whiffing on 30+% of pitches. It was just like swing and miss, and then happened to tattoo the ball for a couple of weeks there where it cut his strikeout rate down. But then we saw all that normalize very, very quickly for Rooker. Who's your Rooker today? First Hicks, then Berger, who we played today. Then, yeah, Berger delivered there. So I was too enthusiastic, I guess, about Abreu for it to have been Abreu. Was there somebody on the other side? Nah, I'm not seeing anybody in this game that I can put the old Mallorca on. I'm not sure. I'm sure I said something about somebody that's going to bring them to life. I'm just not sure who it is. But yeah, Berger's been absolutely tattooing pitchers. So you can see a 13.71 on the old home run model there is second highest on the team. Definitely a very aggressive mark, especially for a hitter who only costs 3,600, 3,100. So for me, it's at least like 1 through 8. We'll see what configuration of the confirmed lineup comes out. That 9 spot is usually fairly dead, whether it's Romy Gonzalez, whether it's Elvis Andrus, whoever it is. It's kind of a dead spot in this lineup. But hopefully we get this configuration from 1 through 8. No Joel Moncada. He went back to the injured list. So you lose his bat, but he's been underperforming. Plus the Dodger bullpen is whack. Yeah, that's another good point there. Not a great bullpen. So if you chase Grove early, you got some significant upside. Dodgers coming back against Dylan Cease. Cease is having an up and down kind of a year. Has lost a lot of his strikeout potential. 10.5% walks, 4.30 on the xFIP, 4.38 on the ERA. Hasn't been filthy for home runs, but is giving up a ton of premium contact. Year over year, this is a tragic change in premium contact for Cease, and it's worth looking at real quick. 48% hard hits this year. It was 31.2% last year. 91 miles an hour average exit velo this year. It was 86.8 miles an hour last year. Something's going on there. That's more, over 74 innings and 14 starts. That's more than just a couple of mistakes. Something's going on here. We've lost some strikeouts down from 30.4 to 25. 25 is still an effective pitcher, especially with the way he's priced, and we'll get into that in a second. 12.1% swinging strike rate is still a good swinging strike rate, but it's not this elite guy that we had these past 2 seasons. So if we're not getting that kind of strike throwing, if we're not getting that kind of strikeouts, and we're getting all that filthy power, that becomes really problematic when you're throwing this kid up against the Dodgers. The price is right. 8,200, 8,300 makes sense. That's in line with a 25% strikeout rate with a guy who's had some issues with power, but hasn't given up a ton of home runs. So do we go to Cease? I think in a handful of shares, maybe. But there's such good ability to limit strikeouts in that Dodgers lineup. All of their key hitters outside of JD have very good strikeout rates. Look at these strikeout rates. Your top 3 guys, Mookie, Freddie Freeman, and Will Smith, 3 stars or superstars. 16.4, 16.3, 12.1% strikeout rates. It skyrockets with JD at 30%, but he's also got a 337 ISO and 16 home runs this year. It drops back down with Peralta, with Miguel Vargas, with Jason Hayward, who's been smoking the ball this year in his limited opportunities. Jumps back up with Chris Taylor to a tragic 35.1%, but he's got 10 home runs and 174 plate appearances to equal his total from like 400 and change plate appearances last year. I think we're just getting so much ability to avoid strikeouts out of these guys, so much power with all these home runs, so much run creation ability with all these runs, all this ISO and slugging percentage and on base skills. It's the Dodgers. I don't know that I want to tangle with it with an underperforming, something's going on, wonky Dylan Cease. It's also not coming through in my model, which is the saving grace for me in that I'm probably not going to have to worry about whether I want it or not because the model's probably not going to give it to me. At the price, maybe 1 or 2 shares trickle to the top. And at the price, maybe I say, all right, let me filter down to Dylan Cease shares and grab the top 5 lineups out of 150. 10 would be pushing it. I don't think we're getting a good version of Dylan Cease here. I do believe in the talent. I think he's a strikeout artist. I think he's been very, very good overall in his career, but it's a deadly bad spot. He's been underperforming. I'm concerned about the spot. Maybe I get a little bit more excited when I see that he's like 1% owned by the field and I say, screw it, it's Dylan Cease. Maybe he delivers and I get, too enthused about it and push him up to like 15 shares, 10% across 150. But that way, I think that would be aggressive. I don't love the spot for Cease. So for me in this one, a lot of enthusiasm about the about the White Sox. Pretty strong enthusiasm about the Dodgers. They project pretty well for me here. They have all that power and all that upside. Very tepid interest in Cease, but the price is right. No interest at all in Michael Grove. I think we covered that one. I think we're up and down on the slate. Dennis says it was Ah-Sung Kim. That's who you have to bump. Yeah, exactly. Kim's going to go out and hit Gary's home runs tonight. Let's take a slide over to the old pitching board. So we've got a lot of expensive pitchers, particularly on FanDuel. All these guys super, super pricey. Mix in some Logan Allen to find a good discount, particularly on DK. 6,900 over there is a misprice. I know it's a very good top-heavy San Diego lineup, but he's a talented pitcher. I think he finds us a handful of strikeouts. I think he pitches some good clean innings there. For that price, I'm interested. I'll take shares at the 9,100 just as a price offset from all those expensive guys. Marcus Stroman is an awkward fit at a higher price than both of these guys. As you can see, it doesn't project. It projects well, but it doesn't project at a similar level to these guys. I'm going to have to give Stroman a nudge because of how that projects, because my model doesn't really account for the ridiculous conditions in Wrigley right now. So I'll give Stroman a bit of a nudge because I do want some in that spot. I like him a lot better at 8,700. He'll probably be a lot more popular on DK. Probably, if you're not going to the extreme value on Logan Allen, probably your SP2 du jour on the DK slate. You're like veteran reliable SP2, unless you consider 9,300 for Sonny Gray in SP2. Depends on what you can put together price-wise over there. If you can put Sonny together with one of these two guys, one of these with Christian Javier or Shohei Ohtani and Sonny Gray, that's pretty dynamite. Same story if you want to go to Nady Eovaldi, excuse me. AJ Smith-Shawver. I know I've said a number of guys are providing good value numbers on DK, but Smith-Shawver going up against that weak Colorado lineup, as long as we don't get that rain interfering, I think has some potential there. Another great value play there. Another guy I'll have some investment in at 88,000 on the FanDuel slate. Boyd is not useless with all those strikeouts in that Minnesota lineup at 5,800. That's probably where I draw my line, although I will grab my odd duck Cease shares probably from the bottom here. I don't need any Grove, Weathers, Freeland, or Oviedo. Minor interest in Boyd. It's just on the idea that maybe he gives me 6 innings and a handful of strikeouts, probably gives up a home run and 3-4 runs, but maybe there's enough strikeouts there to float him at that price. So that's Boyd. Gore, it's tough for Gore. Maybe at 78 on the DK slate, you grab a few, but 86 on FanDuel is kind of challenging against Houston there. So I don't know how much of him I end up with ultimately. Since Neil is asking, and since I've still got it open here, let me jump over to the stacks board. Stacks are published up on the site. There are some changes from this morning when it went up. Like Buxton coming back from the Twins would push Buxton up over what you're about to see. But you can find this up on the site, and it'll give you at least like a guide rail for where some of the value and where some of the good projections are. So this is sorted by my projections. You can see Atlanta, the White Sox, getting good projections like I talked about. It is a definite both-sided situation in San Diego. Logan Allen, the 4th-ranked pitcher, but the Pods, the 3rd-ranked projection, 3rd-ranked FanDuel value because of some of those cheap bats. 2nd-ranked home run. That might come down a little bit with no Gary in the lineup, but I think that's a good both-sided spot. The Dodgers against Dylan Cease, obviously. The Angels and Rangers there, obviously projecting well. But if I'm just saying pure, like, what are my top 3 stacks, you're getting obviously really high ownership here. I'm hoping for a little less ownership on the White Sox, which makes them very interesting to me. I don't know where ownership's projecting. And then I would probably say, maybe you skip the Pods because I do think Logan Allen has a good chance of delivering a strong start and shutting them down a little bit. And I hate the bottom of that lineup. And maybe you just land on the Dodgers, or maybe you land on like the Angels or the Rangers. But these guys are all in terrible matchups. You get value out of here. I don't like this matchup for hitting at all in Pittsburgh with Pittsburgh and the Cubbies. We talked about maybe throwing a few Detroit bats at Sonny Gray, and you can see that coming through in the value column. So like the way my value column works too is this is not necessarily just reflecting cheap prices. It's reflecting like a points per dollar. So that's why you're seeing all these guys are so highly projected from 1 through 9 in their lineups that it's pushing their value numbers up, even though there are some very expensive hitters in these lineups. Where you get a team like Detroit, you're getting true cheap value. You're getting bad hitters at cheap prices. So 2 different ways to think about those numbers. Just think about it, look at this and then say, oh, wait, let me check if this is a good team or a bad team. That'll tell you what kind of a value rating you're getting from this board. It's kind of informing two different things. So that was a long-winded way of looking at all the teams to answer what are my 3 top stacks. Really enthusiastic about the spot for the White Sox. I'll have a lot of them. Atlanta I'll have a lot of, but they'll be popular like we talked about. And then it's probably, I think, the Dodgers there. Just all that talent going up against Cease. Maybe Cease renders them a little bit under-owned. They're very expensive, though. Difficult to afford. So I think that brings us to the end of the show, gang. 5:20. Hour and 20 minutes for a 7-game slate. The show for the 7-game slate is exactly the same as for the 14-game slate. Don't forget to tip your waitress. All those fun things. Hit the like button, the subscribe button. Jump into our Discord. If you guys aren't over on Discord, I realize that not everybody knows that there's a free Discord. It's linked from the top of rotoscouts. It's also down in the description. I made sure to put that in the description today. So I'll try and get it in there every day. But hop in the free Discord. A little bit more activity going on in there now. We got some new members and a lot of enthusiasm talking about all the controversy, all the secrets in the industry. So that's it, gang. Good luck. Go build some winning lineups. Show them to me too. We had let me mention that real quick too. We had a did I say it at the top of the show? I forget if I said it, but Trey hit that little $150 first place finish with the rotoscouts logo for Trey. It's in a nice little contest there. So congrats again to him. Let's get some more winners out there. If you have Twitter and whatnot, feel free to tweet them out. You don't have to. I don't have any reward system or anything like that set up, but appreciate the push from everybody. Appreciate everybody, talking about all this stuff. So, that's it. I can stop talking now. I have a problem stopping talking and saying goodbye to you guys, but I'm going to click the button. I'm going to say goodbye. Good luck out there. See ya.